Hello everyone, it's Maddie here, and I am just making this video as kind of a practice and review before your week 5 quiz. So these are just 5 problems I'm going to go through. You'll see problems like this on your quiz, and I just wanted to make a video of myself working through these problems for you guys to be able to watch. If you need to at any point pause, copy down the problem, work it out, then see if your steps went through like mine. That's what I suggest. So our first question here says the diameter of a circle measures 32 millimeters. What is the circumference of the circle? Remember, if we recall from our Alex topic path, circumference is like the perimeter. It's the outside of the circle, the distance around a circle. We use 3.14 for pi and do not round your answer. Be sure to include the correct unit in your answer. First things first, I'm going to copy down my circumference formula. So that formula is C equals 2 times pi times my radius. In this case, the problem gives us our diameter instead of our radius. That's the only missing piece of information we don't have. And another thing, if you recall from your notes, from taking your notes of your Alex path, is that your diameter, if your diameter is 32, that goes all the way across. Your radius is half of that. So in this case, the radius is going to be 16 millimeters. So then we'll plug in what we know, 2 times 3.14 times 16. I'm going to type all of that in my calculator, and I get out 100.48. And in this, it tells me to be sure, or it says use 3.14 for pi and do not round your answer. So I'll 100.48. But be sure to include the correct unit in your answer. So circumference is just like perimeter, and it's just like it's a distance around something. So for this particular problem, it's just going to stay millimeters. Not millimeters square, millimeters cubed. Remember, anything squared is for area, and when we cube our units, that is when we are dealing with volume. Our second question here says to find the area now of a circle with a diameter of 14. Use the value 3.14 for pi, and again, we're not rounding our answer. And for this one, we are going to include our correct unit in our answer, and we'll talk about that at the end. First things first, I'm going to start with the area of a circle. That formula is pi times the radius squared. Pi times my radius squared. This problem again told me that diameter was 14 inches. So in this case, my radius is going to be half of that, which is 7 inches. Now I plug in what I know. Remember, when we're squaring something or something to the second power, we are just multiplying that number times itself twice. So it's really going to be 3.14 times 49. When I type that into my calculator, I get 153.86 inches. And they're going to be squared this time because we are working with area. Question number 3 says the radius of a sphere is 8.8. Calculate the sphere's surface area of A. Use the value 3.14 for pi and round your answer to the nearest tenth. If you recall, nearest tenth, that's 1 decimal place. So you can have 1 number after the decimal. Again, starting off with my formula. The formula for the surface area of a sphere, and this is why when you were working through all of these Alex topic paths, I put those notes in every day to make sure you were writing down notes and writing down your formulas. So surface area is 4 times pi times the radius squared. So the surface area for a sphere, at least. All of these formulas are different. Surface area and volume, at least, and area for different shapes. For the sphere, this is what we have, and now I'm just going to plug in what I need to. 4, we're going to use 3.14 for pi, and then my radius squared, so 8.8 squared. 8.8 times 8.8 becomes 77.44. I just like to simplify the squaring so I don't mess it up at the end. I like to do that first. Times 4, and then I'm going to type all of this. You can type all of this into your calculator at once. And what you should get out is, on my calculator, I had 972.6464. But remember, it told us to go to the nearest tenth. So that's only one decimal. So I'm going to look at this 6 here. I'm going to look to the right of it. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, I would add one more to it. It's a 4, so I let it rest. So my final answer is 972.6 meters squared. Again, squared because it is dealing with surface area and area in this case. Okay, moving on to question number 4. Cubed, because question number 4 says the diameter D of a sphere is 7.2 centimeters. Calculate the sphere's volume, V. Use the value 3.14 for pi and round your answer to the nearest tenth. Do not round any intermediate computations. What that means is we're not going to round anything along the way. We're just going to type it all into our calculator at once, then round at the end. First thing I'm going to start out with is what is my volume formula? And the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Then for this problem, it looks like I need to know what my radius is. So if the diameter, it tells me, is 7.2, I'm going to divide that in half, and I'll get 3.6, which is our radius. So plug that in, and this will be 4/3 times 3.14 times 3.6 squared, or cubed, my bad. My apologies. Cubed. We'll type all of this into our calculator. For the 4/3, I like to do 4 divided by 3. You can write it the same way. Press enter. Then just say times 3.14 times 3.6, up arrow to the 3rd power. You might need to, if you're doing this on your phone and not a graphing calculator, is 3.6 up to the 3rd power first. Write down that number. Don't round anything. And then times 3.14, and then times that number you get for 4 divided by 3. And when you press enter, you should get, what I got is, on my calculator, 195.33312. But it tells us to round to the nearest tenth. So again, I'm going to look at that first decimal place, 1 to the right, 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, add 1 more. That 3 is below 4, so I'm going to let this 3 rest. So my final answer is 195.3. 195.3 centimeters. Sorry about that. Centimeters cubed, because we are dealing with volume. Okay? And then our last problem here, question number 5. I love this question. So question number 5 says a company makes wax candles in the shape of a solid sphere. Suppose each candle has a diameter of 15 centimeters. If the company has a total of 70,650 centimeters cubed of wax, how many candles can be made? Use 3.14 for pi and do not round your answer. So this question is saying they have a whole bunch of wax and they need to know how many candles they can make with the wax. Well, we have to know. First thing we have to do is figure out how much is one candle. Well, are we looking for the surface area? Is it the outside? Nope, it says it's the solid shape. So that's going to be our volume, the insides too. Surface area is just the outside. It's like the wrapping paper. But this is saying the solid sphere, the shape of a solid sphere. And think a candle, you want the inside to have wax as well. So in this case, we're going to be using volume. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to find the volume of just one candle. Then once we do that, I can take that large amount of wax they have, divide it by how much one candle takes up, and then we can see how many we make from there. So my volume formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. I just need to find out what my radius is. In this problem, it tells us the candle has a diameter of 15. So if my diameter is 15, my radius is half of that, that's 7.5. And we'll plug in what I know. B equals 4/3 times 3.14 times 7.5 cubed, up to the third power. You can find that by saying 7.5 times 7.5 times 7.5, and I'll just simplify that right now. That becomes 421.875. And then this one's decimal ended in this case, so I'm just going to type in my 4/4. That decimal is repeating, so I don't like to write that down and say 1.333. I like to keep that in my calculator, then times 3.14 times 421.875 because that decimal ends. Or you can type it all in your calculator at once. Either way, what you should have gotten out in your calculator is 1,766.25. Now that's our volume, centimeters cubed. That's our volume for one candle. So if I have 70,650 centimeters cubed of wax, I'm going to divide that by how much one is, and we'll be able to find out how many we can make. Because they give us that total amount. So to find out the total number, we have to do the reverse of that multiplication, which would typically be the per. We're undoing that, so we'll be dividing. And when you type that into your calculator, you should get out 40 even, meaning that is how many candles you will be able to make. Great job, everybody.